The first raven came at dusk, beating its wings against the hot wind that blew down from the blackened hill where the Red Keep had once stood. It circled twice above the city that was no longer quite King's Landing, only a sprawling scar where dragons and madness had burned away stone and certainty alike, then dipped and glided toward the new hall of pale lime timber and carved beams that men were already calling the White Keep. On the eastern balcony, where Seabreeze fought smoke, Bran Stark watched it come. He sat in his wheeled chair wrapped in dark wool, though the day's heat had not yet broken. Shadows lay long across the cobbled courtyard below, where a company of gold and black cloaks drilled half-heartedly with spear and shield. Clangs and shouts drifted up, softened by distance, and beyond them the low rumbling noise of the city's endless rebuilding. Hammers on stone, carts rattling over broken streets, a mason calling for more lime. He heard all of it and none of it. The raven perched on the carved oak rail, head cocked, beady black eyes bright as obsidian. It ruffled its feathers as if shaking off the air of some other, wilder sky and stared at him. Bran tilted his head the same way. "I know," he said quietly. "You came the long way." The raven clicked its beak. Its voice reached him not as a caw but as a trembling along the roots of the world. It smelled of wet earth and weirwood sap and the thin sharp scent of snow left too long under a pale sun. The last time Bran had felt that scent so strongly, he had been deep in the caved halls of the Three-Eyed Raven, a boy shivering beneath the earth while the world above him burned, changed, died. His fingers tightened on the wooden arms of the chair. The grain under his fingertips seemed to ripple, bark roughening into living ridges. For an instant he could feel the oak's roots working their slow way between shattered stones and burnt bones. "Go on," he murmured. The raven's beak opened, and this time the sound it made was not a caw at all. It was a word in no tongue of men, a name older than the first men's first stumbling words, a sound that spoke of rustling leaves and rushing streams and the quiet patience of stones that had seen 1,000 winters. Bran understood it perfectly. He closed his eyes. For a heartbeat, the balcony beneath his chair, the keep, the city, all the teeming ant-like bustle of men and women, winked out like a candle in a gale. Instead, there was only the cold, slow singing of the weirwoods, the white trees that rose and spread across the north and the riverlands, and a few scattered godswoods farther south like scattered memories, their roots knitting the land together into something that was itself a mind. He had known that mind for years now, lived in it, swum in it, lost himself in it. It had been a refuge and a burden, a vastness in which he could drown. Now he felt something moving within that vastness, something waking. He saw them as flashes, slitted gold-green eyes opening in the dark of an ancient barrow, a small brown hand pressed to the bark of a heart tree, a ring of shapes flitting between the boles of the haunted forest, their laughter like the chime of wind in ice-laden leaves. "We are not gone," the raven whispered through his bone. "We are not gone. We return." Bran's heart beat once, twice, heavy as a hammer. "Where?" His lips felt dry. "Where do you return?" The answer was not a place but a direction, a pull. South and west from his body in the White Keep, along a chain of weirwoods. King's Landing had none, but the roots remembered, and memory bridged gaps as easily as a raven crossed skies, to a green island in the heart of a river, the Isle of Faces, the green heart of the old ways, where the pact between men and the children had been sworn when the world was young and swords were still more bronze than steel. Bran let out a slow breath and opened his eyes. The raven watched him solemnly. Its feathers shimmered with phantom gleams of green and white, as if the reflection of a distant, unseen tree played across them. "Stay," Bran told it. "If you like." He turned his chair with a thought. Wood creaked. The wheels began to roll, guided by the hands of a young squire whose name Bran did not need to ask. He already knew the boy's whole life. A winter-born son of a cobbler from Maidenpool, brought to court because a knight had seen him stand his ground in a street brawl. But he smiled at him anyway. "Your Grace?" the boy asked, eyes anxious. "Is something amiss?" "Not yet," Bran said. "Send for the hand." Tyrion Lannister arrived sooner than most men would have thought possible. given the breadth of his responsibilities and the shortness of his legs. He entered the solar with dust on the cuffs of his pale doublet, a quill still in hand and a streak of ink across his fingers where he must have rubbed at his eye. His hair was more silver than gold now, though the scars that marred his face were unchanged, and his mismatched eyes were as keen as ever. "Your Grace," he said, executing a graceful bow that looked no less practiced for the stiffness in one knee. "If this is about the grain levies from the Reach, I should warn you that if we press the Tyrell bannermen any harder, we may have to find a new name for their house sigil. Perhaps the House of Half a Rose." "It's not the Reach," Bran said. "That is a relief. I dislike penning letters to men who drink more than I did in my worst days. It makes me nostalgic." Tyrion followed Bran's gaze to the raven on the balcony rail. "Ah, a visitor. Does it carry our daily allotment of doom? Or is this a special delivery?" Bran did not answer immediately. Words still seemed too small. "The children of the forest are returning," he said at last. Tyrion was good at hiding his thoughts. He had had to be to survive the Game of Thrones with his head and tongue intact. But surprise flickered across his face nonetheless, a tiny widening of the eyes, the angle of his jaw tightening. "The children." He walked closer until he stood beside Bran's chair, peering at the raven as if it might suddenly begin reciting the city's accounts. "Those same children that most of Westeros still thinks are little better than nursery tales? The ones we were all very glad to learn were still real until we discovered they had helped create an army of ice demons that nearly ended the world. The same." Bran looked down at his pale hands, flexed his fingers slowly as if seeing them for the first time. "They never fully left, but they were in hiding in deep places, scattered, nearly broken. Now they gather." Tyrion set the quill down on the edge of the desk, carefully out of danger of rolling off. "And they were kind enough to send notice of their impending visit," he said lightly. "Instead of simply appearing and turning half the court into trees or wolves. How thoughtful. Do they say what they want?" Bran turned his head to look out over the city. Smoke smudged the horizon where kills fired, where new stone was fired and old stone broken. The dragon pit was a black hollow against the evening sky, its shattered dome like a broken tooth. "They want what they're owed," he said. "And what they fear we can never give." Tyrion waited. Bran could feel the weight of his patience, the way the man forced himself not to ask too quickly, not to push. "They want their king," Bran said softly. "One last time. The final king the world will ever have." He could feel Tyrion staring at him, as palpable as a hand on his shoulder. "Of course they do," Tyrion said after a long moment. "Why would anything ever be simple?" In the north, where spring had come late and grudgingly, Sansa Stark stood in the Godswood of Winterfell and watched the heart tree bleed. The weirwood's pale trunk twisted up from the damp earth like a ghost's arm, its carved face long and sorrowful. Red sap oozed from the eyes in slow tears, staining the bark as if the tree had been crying for centuries. In truth, it had been crying longer than that, longer than any maester's dust-dry histories remembered, longer even than the songs sung by old Nan by the hearth. The new leaves whispered overhead, their red hands brushing one another in a language Sansa had come to hear, if not entirely to understand. They spoke of wind and snow, of ravens in flight, of children playing beneath branches long since cut down, of wolves. The wolves, Sansa thought. Always the wolves. Her own dire wolf was long dead. Lady's bones lay somewhere beneath the earth of the Crownlands, scattered or turned to dust after all that burning. Yet sometimes at night, when the wind howled through the broken battlements and the candles guttered low, she would feel a warm weight at the foot of her bed, hear the soft huff of a great animal's breath. She never looked. Somehow she knew that if she did, the bed would be empty. Today there was no phantom wolf, only the tree and the quiet rush of the hot springs underfoot. And the tears, thicker and brighter than she had ever seen them, welling and running in thin crimson tracks. "That's not right," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "It is never right when trees cry," said a voice behind her. "But I think they have much to weep for." Sansa turned. The man who had once been called the Hound stood just inside the ring of trees, one massive shoulder resting against the rough bark of an elm. He had grown his beard out into a gray-shot thicket that hid many of the old scars, but his burned cheek was still a ruin of twisted flesh, his dark eyes still deep and watchful. "Don't call them trees," Sansa said, softer than she might have years ago. "They're more than that." Sandor Clegane snorted. "Where I came from, a tree is a tree, and if it doesn't burn when you put a torch to it, it's the bloody exception. But here I'll grant you they're more." He scratched at his beard. "The Maester says the sap runs like that sometimes when the seasons change. The Maester is new." Sansa's voice remained even. "The tree is old." There was a rustle behind her. She turned again to see the Maester in question hovering at the edge of the Godswood. His gray robes hitched up from the damp earth, a roll of parchment clutched in one thin hand. He had been sent from Old Town only last year, fresh-faced and earnest, his chain still bright enough to catch the sun. "Your Grace," he said, bowing so low his chain chimed softly. "There is a raven from King's Landing." Sansa's stomach tightened, though her face did not change. "In the Great Hall?" she asked. "In your solar. Lord Royce thought you would wish to read it in private." "Of course." Sansa glanced once more at the heart tree. The sap gleamed wetly, like blood spilled on snow. "I'll come at once." Sandor pushed himself off the elm. "I'll walk with you," he said gruffly, "in case the letter bites." They crossed the yard together, Sansa's hand resting lightly on his arm. It was an easy thing now, the contact. The fear she had once felt in his presence had been tempered and hammered into something else long ago, by fire and loss and 1,000 hard lessons. He walked half a step ahead of her, the way a shield might walk before a sword. Winterfell's great hall was half full despite the hour, the low murmur of voices rising and falling like the sea. Men and women ate trenchers of venison and barley, mugs of ale in their hands, the banners of the North's houses. Manderley, Glover, Umber, Karstark redeemed through younger blood, stirring lazily from the rafters. Sansa's crown weighed lightly on her brow, a circlet of dark steel shaped like tangled branches. The sight of it still made something tight, and in her chest when she caught her reflection. She had once dreamed of a golden crown, of jewels and silk and songs. The weight she wore now had been bought with too much blood to ever shine. In her solar, with its view of the inner yard and the distant shadows of the broken towers, she took the raven's message from the Maester's hands and broke the seal. The wax was stamped with the sigil of House Stark, the direwolf of Winterfell, and behind it the smaller impression of the royal seal of the Six Kingdoms. A weirwood tree entwined with a dragon, a lion, a stag, a rose, a kraken, a sun, and waves. Bran had chosen it himself. Sansa's fingers trembled only once as she unrolled the parchment. "Sister," the first line read in a hand she knew as well as her own. "There is news from the old gods. Come south." The rest was more measured, the formal phrasing of a king writing to a queen, but the first words were Bran's, stripped bare of ceremony. "The children of the forest are returning." She read the words 3 times before she let herself look up. Sandor was watching her, his arms folded, broad shoulders filling half the doorway. The Maester busied himself with some imaginary task near the hearth, eyes politely downcast, but Sansa knew his ears would be straining. "Any bad tidings?" Sandor asked. "Yes," Sansa said. "And no, I don't know yet." She folded the parchment carefully. "I have to go to the south." "The south has never been kind to you," Sandor said. "No," Sansa slid the letter into a leather tube and sealed it. "But my brother asks, and the north has never been kind to those who ignore the call of their kin." Some hours later, in the chambers he had claimed for himself high in the White Keep, Tyrion poured wine for both of them. He did it with care, as if decanting some noxious potion rather than the rich red from the arbor. Maybe it was some sort of potion. Drink enough of it and the world blurred, its edges softened. Tyrion had run from a lifetime of sharp edges into the bottom of a cup before. These days he sipped more slowly. Kings, he said, offering Bran his cup, "have been many things, drunkards, saints, cowards, tyrants. I confess that final is a new category." Bran took the cup but did not drink. His body needed little food or drink these days. The weirwoods nourished him in other ways. Still, he held the wine, liking the feel of the cup's carved stem under his fingers, the way the shadows of the flickering candles painted red curves on the wall. "What does it mean?" Tyrion asked. "Final king? Final for whom?" "Us, the children, the world." "For everyone," Bran said. "For the Age of Kings. For the Game of Thrones you once played so well." His mouth curled at one corner. "Are you sad to see it ending?" "I would be lying if I said I didn't occasionally miss the clarity of it." Tyrion sank into a chair opposite, moving with the careful economy of one whose pains never entirely left him. It was a simple thing. You choose your pieces, you move them, you win or you die. Governance, on the other hand, is a tedious, endless muddle where one can do everything right and still find oneself ankle-deep in shit because a dockmaster took a bribe. "Kingship should not be a game," Bran said. "And yet it has been, for thousands of years. Men chasing crowns, spilling blood for metal circles." He looked down at his hands, flexed them again. "The children remember a time before that." "The children remember many things," Tyrion said carefully. "Among them, I gather, the slaughter of their forests and the drowning of their gods, and their own part in creating the Night King." He swirled his wine. "Will they come to parley, do you think? Or to judge?" "They come to make an offer," Bran said. "And a threat." He looked up, meeting Tyrion's mismatched gaze. "They come to name me their king, and to say that if I refuse them, if the world refuses them, the forests will take back what was stolen. Slowly, perhaps, or not so slowly." Tyrion was silent for a long while. At last he said, "And what would that look like? The forests taking back what was stolen?" Bran's mind filled, unbidden, with visions that were not visions but possibilities. Roots splitting stone, rivers overflowing their banks, harvests failing as fields returned to scrub and thorn, winter wolves hunting in streets once paved and lantern-lit, proud towers toppling under the patient pressure of growing things. "Fewer cities," Bran said. "More trees." "Yes, well, trees have never paid taxes, in my experience." Tyrion took a long swallow of wine and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Do you know why they want you? You are already there. What is the phrase, three-eyed raven? Why a king as well?" "They want a bridge," Bran said. "They have always been few, and they will be fewer still. The age of men cannot be turned back, only slowed. They know this, but they also know that if men keep cutting and burning and forgetting, the land itself will break. They want someone who can speak both languages. Languages of men and of trees." Bran closed his eyes. The room faded to the barest sketch. Beneath and around him, the weirwoods whispered, distant and close, of time and of now. They want a king who can see the pattern of the whole loom, not just the thread in his hand. Tyrion chuckled bleakly. And yet they did not choose a man of numbers and ledgers. Very unfair. He set his cup down. "What will you do?" Bran opened his eyes. Somewhere far to the north, snow fell. He felt each flake touch the shoulder of a dark-furred wolf stalking through the trees. He felt Arya's feet on the deck of her ship as it cut westward into waters no man had charted. He felt Jon Snow, no, Jon of no house, his brother all the same, walking the frosted fields beyond the wall, ghost padding at his side. He felt San. Essay turn her horse's head south. "I will go to the Isle of Faces," he said, "and I will listen." By the time the sun rose on the day they were to depart, the city buzzed like a kicked anthill. News traveled oddly in the post-war world. Ravens flew, of course, bearing sealed letters and formal proclamations, but rumors flew faster, riding on the backs of merchants and beggars, sailors and whores, thieves and septons. By the time the criers went out through the streets to announce that King Brandon would be traveling to the Riverlands to treat with certain ancient allies of the realm, half the city was already whispering that he meant to marry a child of the forest, or become one, or duel some ancient god for the right to keep the sun burning. They exaggerate, Tyrion said dryly when he heard that last one. Only the last part is true. They assembled in the courtyard of the White Keep under a sky blurred with thin gray clouds. The air smelled of ash and sea salt, horse sweat and tar. Banners snapped fitfully in the breeze. The new royal standard, the Lion of Lannister, the flayed man of Bolton conspicuously absent, Winterfell's direwolf flying side by side with the crowned stag of Storm's End, the trout of Tully brought out of old storerooms and re-dyed. Bran sat in his chair beneath a small awning. Beside him waited a litter padded with thick furs, its poles ready to be slung between two sturdy horses. The roads were not always smooth. Wheels broke, axles snapped. His body was frail enough without trusting it to every rut between here and the river. "You should have dragons," said Ser Brienne of Tarth. She stood with her hand on the hilt of Oathkeeper, her armor freshly cleaned, the blue cloak of the Kingsguard hanging from her shoulders. "They would make the journey swifter and safer." "There are no dragons left," Tyrion said, adjusting the clasp of his own dark cloak. "Unless you know something I do not, Ser Brienne. In which case, I would very much like to hear it." "They are not as gone as the world thinks," Brienne said. "So the songs say." "The songs also say that brave knights always rescue fair maidens," Tyrion said. "I have seen very little evidence of that myself." Brienne looked faintly offended, which amused him more than it should. "We will be safe enough," Bran said. "If the children wished us harm, they could strike from any shadow or stream. Horses and steel will not stop them." "Comforting," muttered Ser Podrick Payne behind Brienne. The party was small, for a king's retinue. Bran insisted on that. He did not want to wade into this parley trailing 1,000 soldiers, as though he meant to do battle rather than speak. Even so, there were knights and archers and men-at-arms, enough to satisfy the fears of the noble houses. From the Faith came the High Septon, a plump man with soft eyes and soft hands, his crystal crown gleaming in the gray light. It still surprised Tyrion that a man chosen by the High Sparrow's ragged zealots had not turned out more like his predecessor. But the war had tempered many things. This Septon spoke much of mercy and little of wrath. From the Reach came Ser Willis Tyrell, riding despite his twisted leg, a keen-faced man who talked more of irrigation than of feasts and tourneys. The Tyrell line had not been entirely extinguished after all, though its surviving branch had withered for a time in obscurity before the storms of war blew it back into the sun. From Dorne came Princess Arianne Martell, her dark hair braided with tiny silver suns, her expression cool as the shadowed water of an oasis. Dorne had bent the knee to Bran with less resistance than some might have expected. Perhaps they saw in a king who mostly watched and listened something that resembled their own patient, vengeful land. From the Vale came Lord Robin Arryn, taller and less sickly than the boy Tyrion remembered holding out to the moon door. His eyes were no less wide, but there was a steadiness to him now that spoke of long hours spent under the watchful gaze of Lord Royce. From the Riverlands came Edmure Tully, lines of grief carved deep into his face. He had lost much: a daughter, a home, years of life in a dungeon. Yet he smiled when he saw Bran, and Bran smiled back, because they both remembered a hall called Riverrun, full of banners and song, before the world had been broken and remade. "Your Grace," a voice called. Bran turned. Missandei of Noth approached with the smooth step of one who had learned to cross polished stone floors under the gaze of a queen. Her hair was shot through with a few strands of silver now, though her face remained young. "Grey Worm sends you this," she said, holding out a small parcel wrapped in cloth. He wished to come himself, but the work in Noth is not yet done. They build a new city there, a free city in more ways than one. Bran took the parcel, curiosity pricking at him. Inside, wrapped in oiled paper, lay a small carved figure of dark wood. A woman with dragon wings, a crown of 3 heads, and eyes half-lidded as if in sleep. "Daenerys," Bran said softly. Missandei bowed her head. "He says he remembers how she died," she said. "He remembers the fire, but he wishes also to remember what she tried to make. Perhaps the children of the forest can understand that. Perhaps, Bran said. He tucked the carved figure into the pouch at his belt, where its hard outline pressed against his hip. A ghost of a queen traveling with them. "Mount up," someone shouted. The courtyard stirred into motion. Horses snorted and stamped, hooves clattering on stone. Banners lifted. The city's gates yawned open like a waiting mouth. Bran let his mind slip free as they passed beneath the carved arch. Above them, ravens wheeled in the sky. He followed their flight. The road north and west wound through a land that still wore the scars openly. They passed villages half rebuilt, burned houses standing beside new ones like charred teeth in a fresh-grown jaw. In some fields, men and women worked with bent backs, turning blackened furrows, coaxing life from soil that had drunk too much blood. In others, weeds and thorns choked the ground, and the only movement was the flutter of crows over bones. On the second day, a child ran alongside the king's litter for nearly a mile, bare feet pounding the dust, eyes bright as she stared at the procession. "Is it true?" she shouted at last, breathless. "Is it true you can see everything, Your Grace? Everything in the world?" Bran turned his head. "Not everything," he called back. "Only enough." "Enough for what?" "To remember," he said, "and to choose differently." The girl frowned as if this were not the answer she had hoped for, but she nodded anyway and peeled away, running back toward the cluster of houses where her mother stood, shading her eyes. At night, they camped by rivers and under stands of stubborn trees that had survived both dragons and winter. Fires burned, thin smoke curling into the star-pricked dark. Men told stories in low voices, though they fell silent when Bran rolled closer, listening. "They think you're more ghost than man," Tyrion observed quietly one evening as Bran sat at the edge of the firelight, watching flames dance. "They do not know whether to bow to you or throw salt and iron filings." "They should not throw iron," Bran said absently. "The children do not like it." Tyrion lifted an eyebrow. "Are we expecting to be ambushed by a horde of angry tree people in the middle of the night? If so, I would very much like to finish my wine first." "They're not tree people," Bran said, "and they won't ambush us. This is not how they work." "How do they work?" Bran stared into the fire. The flames were bright tongues, but behind them he saw other fires. Ringed around weirwoods, reflected in eyes that flashed green and gold, burning in the sockets of dead men. "They lay snares in time," he said. "Set stones in place and wait for men to stumble over them." Tyrion rubbed a hand over his face. "That is very comforting," he muttered. "Remind me again why we did not simply retire to the north and leave the rest of the world to sort itself out." "Because the rest of the world would eventually come for the north," Bran said. "And for the Isle of Faces, and for all the other places where old things still sleep." "Ah yes, sleeping things. Always so grateful when we wake them." On the fifth day, as they rode through a stand of old oaks along the banks of the Blackwater Rush, the horses began to shy. Bran felt it before anyone spoke. The air changed. It grew still, as if the wind had paused in its endless wandering to listen. The hair on the back of Tyrion's neck prickled. The ravens that had followed them on and off throughout the journey fell into a sudden, perfect silence. "Hold," Brienne called, raising her hand. The column slowed, hoofs stamping, bits jingling. Knights reached for sword hilts, eyes scanning the trees. Something moved between the trunks, too low to be a man, too smooth to be any beast the men of the South knew. Branches parted as if pushed by invisible hands, and a figure stepped out into the dappled light. She stood no taller than a child of 10, but no one would ever mistake her for human. Her skin was the color of old bark, her hair a tangle of leaves and moss. Her eyes were large and gold, with no whites at all, and they shone faintly even in the day. Bran had seen her before under the earth when the world had been ending. "Leaf," he said. The child tilted her head. The motion was eerily familiar. It was how all of them moved, these beings of bark and bone, as if listening to some sound just beyond human hearing. "Brandon Stark," she said. Her voice was the rustle of leaves in a slow wind. Winged wolf, three-eyed raven, king of men. Her eyes flicked to Tyrion, to Brienne, to the High Septon and Arianne and all the others. You brought many. I brought few, Bran said. For a king. For this. Few, Leaf agreed. Just enough to witness. Ser Podrick's horse snorted, tossing its head. The young knight tightened his grip on the reins, his eyes wide. You are far from your hiding places, Bran said to Leaf. From your caves and hollow hills. The caves fall in, Leaf said simply. The hills sink. Stone forgets. Trees remember. We go where the roots go. Her gaze slid to the High Septon. You bring a god who does not remember. The seven remember all their faithful, the High Septon said gently. Just as your gods do, child. Leaf's lips shaped something like a smile. I was old when your seven were stones in the river, she said. Do not call me child. Tyrion coughed lightly. We are on our way to parley, he said. To the Isle of Faces. I assume this is your doing. The Isle is the heart, Leaf said. We call you to the heart. We will speak from the roots. You could have simply had us meet you there, Tyrion said. I do enjoy a river journey. Leaf looked at him as if he were an interesting insect. Men, she said, need warning. She turned to Bran again. The others gather, not only the singers. Singers, Tyrion murmured to Bran. Children, Bran said. It's what they call themselves. And if not only them? Tyrion persisted. What else gathers? Leaf's eyes flashed. The trees around them seemed to lean in. The green men, she said. Those who kept the pact when your kind forgot it. Men whose blood is mixed with sap. Men who have grown antlers from their brows and moss on their bones. They have watched you ruin the rivers and soil. They have opinions. Of course they do, Tyrion muttered. Everyone has opinions. Have they also got swords? They have horns and spears and roots, Leaf said. And they have me, and mine. She stepped aside. More figures emerged from the trees. Half a dozen shadows resolving into small, lithe shapes. Their eyes glowed, green, gold, molten amber. Some carried spears tipped with dragonglass, others woven slings. Most carried nothing, their hands empty and dangerous. Tension thrummed through the men of the retinue like a pulled bowstring. Hands twitched on hilts. One of the archers took an involuntary step forward. Easy, Brienne said softly. No one draws unless I say. Bran's hand brushed the carved figure of Daenerys at his belt. For a moment he felt again the hot breath of her dragon on his face, though he had never stood that close in truth. Memory and vision tangled in him like vines. We will come, he said to Leaf, to the Isle, to the heart. We will listen. Leaf nodded once. You will listen, she said, and you will choose. That is what kings do, even final ones. When they reached the banks of the lake that surrounded the Isle of Faces, the water lay flat and dark as a pane of obsidian. Boats waited for them. Low, narrow crafts made from some pale wood that shimmered faintly in the dusk. No boatman stood beside them. They rocked gently at the shore as if some unseen hand steadied them. The green men's work, Edmure Tully murmured at Bran's side. My grandfather spoke of them once. A tale told when the wine ran too freely. I did not think to see it in my lifetime. Much that was myth walks again, Bran said. The world grows thin. What does that mean? Edmure asked uneasily. It means, Tyrion answered, that the walls between stories and stone are crumbling, which is a very poetic way of saying, expect anything. The men muttered prayers as they climbed into the boats. To the seven, to the old gods, to the mother Rhoyne. Brienne said nothing, but her lips tightened as she wrapped a hand around Oathkeeper's hilt, as if the sword were itself a vow she could hold. The boats slid out on the water without oars. The lake was utterly still, the only sound the faint creak of wood and the occasional splash of something unseen beneath the surface. Mist curled up from the water in low, clinging tendrils, tasting of cold and iron and something older, like the inside of a stone. Bran watched the shore recede. The mainland's trees blurred into shadow. Ahead, the Isle rose, an uneven hump of land blanketed in forest. And weirwoods, dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, their pale trunks rising like bone fingers, their red leaves a canopy of living flame. Their carved faces stared out over the water, over the world, tears of sap bright on their cheeks. As the boats approached, the air grew colder. Bran felt it less on his skin than in his marrow. A deep shiver ran through him, not of fear but of recognition. "Is it always like this?" Tyrion asked under his breath. "Whenever you get close to a, what do you call it? A strong place in the whatever it is you climb around in." "Sometimes," Bran said. He did not have words for it that Tyrion would understand. It was like coming home to a house you had never truly left, like stepping into a river that remembered every drop of water that had ever passed through it. The boats slid up against a low, moss-covered bank. Figures waited among the trees. At first Bran thought they were more children. They were not. They were taller, the height of men, but their proportions were wrong. Their limbs were lean and corded, their skin dark with sun and streaked with green where moss and lichen clung. Their hair was tangled with leaves and antlers sprouted from some of their brows. Not stag antlers, but something older, branches more than bone. Their eyes were human. And not. One stepped forward. He wore a skirt of woven reeds and a collar of weirwood bark. His antlers were asymmetrical, one sweeping up like the branch of a young tree, the other broken stump. "King of the Six Kingdoms," he said. His voice sounded as if it had not been used in a decade, dry and rough, but it carried clearly. "Brandon Stark, three-eyed raven, you bring steel to the heart of the green." "We bring ourselves," Bran said. "Steel is attached. It will stay sheathed unless you force otherwise." The green man's gaze flicked to the swords, to Brienne's hand resting on Oathkeeper, to Arianne's dagger glittering at her hip. "If we wished you dead," he said, "you would already be roots. Come, the pact waits." They made their way up the shallow slope into the forest. Sound changed under the weirwoods. The rustle of leaves was louder. The smallest footstep echoed strangely. Even Tyrion fell silent, his habitual mutterings dying on his tongue. The weirwoods had been tended. Their trunks were clean of moss, their faces carved deeper, the grooves of eyes and mouths traced and retraced by patient, small hands. At their feet lay offerings: bones, strings of shells, polished stones, bits of twisted metal. At the center of the isle lay a clearing where the trees grew sparsely, leaving a circle of open sky. There a vast weirwood towered, thicker than any Bran had ever seen, its trunk spreading and twisting like a frozen storm. Its face was many faces, layers carved atop each other, some weathered almost smooth, others sharp as if cut yesterday. Beneath its branches stood the children, more than Bran had ever imagined still alive. Scores of them, perhaps hundreds, their gold and green eyes gleaming in the twilight. Some wore leaves, some rags of ancient leather, some nothing at all but their own skin and scars. They watched the humans enter as a forest watches a fire, warily, ready to twist away or smother. Leaf stood before them, a small figure against the great trunk. The green men ringed the outer edge of the clearing like stones. Bran rolled his chair forward until he was before the great tree. The others fanned out behind and beside him. Tyrion and Brienne, the High Septon clutching his crystal scepter, Edmure with the Trout of Tully on his breast, Arianne with her hands clasped loosely, eyes alert, Robin Arryn with Lord Royce looming like a mountain at his back. No one spoke. At last Leaf stepped forward. "We gather," she said, "as we did when first we made the pact. Men and singers, gods and their keepers. The river, the sky, the stone." Her eyes slid to Bran. "And time." Bran felt the weirwood's roots under the earth, tangled and deep, not just beneath this clearing but spreading out, linking to every heart tree in the land. It was like standing on a spiderweb made of years. "You know why we called you," Leaf said. Bran nodded. "You want me to be your king," he said. "Your last king." Leaf smiled without joy. You are already king, she said, of men. They raised you on a throne of wood and promise. You sit it as if it were a chair in a hall, no more. They do not understand what they did when they chose you, crippled boy with an old man's eyes. They chose peace, Tyrion said, stepping forward. They chose someone they thought would not burn their cities or cut their throats over a slight. They chose a man who had already seen too much war. They chose a door, Leaf said, and left it open. The great weirwood creaked. Sap oozed from one of its many eyes, falling in a slow red tear. The first kings in this land were not men, Leaf said. They were trees and rivers and storm winds. We sang to them and they sang back. Then men came with bronze and fire and new gods. They cut the trees. They dammed the rivers. They named themselves kings instead. She gestured at the humans in the clearing, a small movement that took in all the banners, all the silk and steel. Your crowns have always been stolen, she said. We let you keep them. We thought time would break you, as it breaks all things. But you learned to twist time instead, to build your towers on bones, to forge your swords from stars. You cut deeper. You burned more. The High Septon cleared his throat gently. The Seven teach us stewardship, he began. We are to care for the world, not. The Seven came late. Leaf cut him off. They came to a land already scarred. They wrapped chains of words around men's hearts and made them call those chains virtue. It is not enough. The green man with the broken antler spoke then. We have watched you, he said. For long centuries we have watched you dam the rivers, cage the beasts, drive the wild things into corners and then into stories. He lifted his hand. Tiny roots poked through the skin, curling, seeking the damp earth. We are what happens when sap and blood mix. We are oath and reminder. We do not forget. Bran took a breath. The Night King, he said quietly. You created him. You broke the world once already, trying to stop men with a blade of ice. Leaf's gaze flickered, the first sign of unease. We did, she said. We were young. We were afraid. You are old now, Bran said. Are you less afraid? We are more afraid, Leaf said, because we have seen what comes when we do nothing. You have more ways to cut now, more ways to burn. Your steel goes farther. Your ships go faster. You have stolen dragons from the bones of the earth and turned them against each other. And you die so quickly. You live your small lives and then your sons and their sons. Each one thinks he is the first to want, the first to take, the first to bleed the land for his need. We remember. You do not. She pointed at Bran. You remember, she said. That is why we chose you. Not because you are good. Not because you are just. Because you are a river that remembers its source. I remember too, Tyrion said quietly. I remember wildfire in the bay, dragons in the sky, white shadows on the fields. I remember my father's body on a privy, my nephew's head on a spike, my brother's hand cut from his wrist. Does that make me fit to be king of anything? No, Leaf said. You remember your own story. He remembers more. Her gaze sharpened. Sometimes too much. Bran said nothing. He did not need to. They were right. Memory pressed against his skull like too much water behind a dam. 10,000 lives, 10,000 deaths, 10,000 choices. He had not lived them, but he had seen them. Sometimes the line between had blurred. You want me to choose for the world, he said. Yes, said Leaf and the Green Man together. And if I choose wrong? Bran asked. Then the world will end differently, Leaf said simply. It always ends. That is what endings are. Tyrion laughed once, bitter and low. Final king indeed, he said. No pressure. The great weirwood shuddered. His branches creaked like old bones. A voice emerged from it, not in any language, but Bran understood. Show them, it said. Leaf nodded slowly. The pact was sworn here, she said. Blood in the water, blood on the roots. We gave you the high hills and the fields. We kept the deep woods and the great rivers. You promised not to cut. You promised not to hunt us. Her eyes moved from face to face. You broke the pact. Again and again. Some of you more than others. Some of you less. But all of you in the end. We cannot undo the breaking, the Green Man said. But we can choose where it leads. We can bind new oaths. Or we can let the green rise and wash you away. How? Edmure Tully asked shakily. We are many. You are few. Even if all your trees rose up and walked, we have swords. We have walls. Leaf smiled, and this time there was nothing kind in it. You are many, she said. And you have walls, but we have time. We have roots in every stone you think is strong. We have seeds in your GRA. Nares and cracks in your dams. A tree grows slowly, lord of rivers, but a forest is patient. A gust of wind stirred the red leaves overhead. For a moment they shivered in patterns that looked like maps. Lines twisting and crossing, rivers and roads made of veins and branches. Bran reached down and pressed his bare hand to the earth. It was like plunging his arm into ice. He fell, not in body. His chair did not move. The people around him did not see him tumble. But his mind, his self, slipped down and down through the dark soil, along roots that glowed faintly green. He passed bones. Men, deer, giants, things without names, and stones worn smooth by ancient rivers. He slid along the weirwood's memory, out and out, north and south and west and east. Arthur Dane's sword flashing as dawn rose over a red mountain. A small girl running through Winterfell's yard, breath puffing in the cold, barking laughter of direwolf pups around her. A man with a white beard and black eyes kneeling before a pool in a cave, dragonglass dagger in his hands. A bound human thrashing on the altar of stone. Children of the forest pressing their hands into the captive's chest, into his eyes. Ice, endless ice, rushing outward. He saw himself fall from the tower again, heard Jaime Lannister's voice. The things I do for love. But this time he saw more. Saw the line of cause and effect stretching back, the choices that had led to that moment, and the ones that had led from it to this clearing on this island. He saw kings crowned and uncrowned, queens burned and spared, fields raised and restored. He saw Arya's ship crest a wave as tall as a castle, saw Jon laugh for the first time in years as ghosts stole a haunch of meat, saw Sansa sitting in the Godswood, tears on her cheeks as she watched the heart tree bleed. He saw future paths. A city choked by vines, its bells ringing as roots twisted through them. A desert blooming under a lattice of irrigation channels. Ships with white sails and green flags crossing a calmer sea. Men in iron armor hacking at trees that bled red sap. He saw a world with no kings, only councils, assemblies of men and women arguing, compromising, building and breaking. He saw another world still ruled by one crowned head after another, blood following blood. He saw himself die. In 100 different ways at 100 different times. Old in his bed, his eyes white but still bright. Young, pierced by a spear of ice. Not at all. His body withering in a chair while his mind melted into the weirwoods until there was no line between them. Choose, the great tree whispered. Choose, final king. Bran remembered the girl on the road, asking if he saw everything. Not everything, only enough. He pulled himself upward, hands still pressed to the earth, roots reluctant to let him go. His breath returned in a rush, his heart hammered. The world snapped back into place. The clearing, the faces, the tension. Tyrion's hand was on his shoulder. His mismatched eyes searched Bran's face. Well, he asked quietly, did the trees have a good story to tell? Bran drew in a slow breath. The pact is broken, he said, his voice rough. Too broken to mend. We cannot pretend it still holds. He looked at Leaf, at the Green Man, at the children and weirwoods. But we can write something new. Leaf tilted her head. New words over old graves, she said. Kings have done that before. No king will do this alone, Bran said. That is the point. That is why I am your final king. Murmurs rippled through the human contingent. Robin Arryn frowned, open-mouthed. Arianne's eyes narrowed, assessing. The High Septon clutched his crystal harder. What do you mean? Edmure asked. Final how? Your Grace, Bran. Bran turned his chair slowly, the better to see them all. For thousands of years, he said, we have tied power to blood, to crowns and chairs and swords drawn from stones. We broke the world that way, again and again. The children's kings were trees and storms. Ours were men and women. All of them thought themselves chosen. All of them believed they had a right that others did not. He looked back up at the great weirwood. End it, he said simply. No more kings, no more queens, no more thrones. His hand brushed the carved figure at his belt. No more dragons on chains. Tyrion's mouth fell open. You propose, he said slowly, to abolish yourself. I propose to make myself unnecessary, Bran said. I propose to make councils permanent, to bind every realm in oaths to the land itself, not to my name. Let Winterfell be ruled by my sister and whoever comes after her, chosen by her people. Let the Riverlands choose their own lord. Let Dorne keep its princes and princesses if it wishes, but not as gods born above the law. In other words, Aerion said, smiling faintly, you ask us to give away pieces of the game we have played for generations. You still play it, Bran said. In your heads, if not in your halls. One insult and you think of banners. One slight and you recall old wars. That will not work anymore. If you swear to the new pact, you swear that the land itself comes first. Not your pride, not your sigils. And if we do not swear? Robin Arryn asked. The green man spoke. Then the roots will grow, he said, and the rivers will change. Floods will come where they did not. Crops will fail where they once grew. Diseases will rise, and beasts, and storms. We will not attack your walls with spears. We will wait until the mortar crumbles. You would kill us all, Edmure said, aghast. We would let you kill yourselves, Leaf said. We would not stay your hand when you cut the last tree and salt the last field. Brienne stepped forward. If we swear this pact, she said. What does it ask? Not cutting any more trees? How do we build ships, then? Houses? How do we make fires in winter? You take less, Leaf said. You plant more. You ask the land before you take. And if the weirwoods say no, you listen. The weirwoods do not speak to most men, the High Septon said. I will speak, Bran said, as their king, as yours, for a time. And then, Tyrion asked, you will die or vanish into your trees. What happens when the next generation faces a hard winter and thinks, why should we listen to this old pact made by dead men and tree ghosts? Then the land will answer, Bran said. I will leave roots. He smiled a little sadly. There will be more like me, not kings, listeners, witnesses, not in every town, but enough that the world will remember. He thought of children yet unborn, sitting under heart trees, closing their eyes and hearing not just the whisper of leaves but distant voices. His voice, Leaves, the girl on the road, grown and old. A council rustled through the clearing like leaves. To your side. Do you have any idea, he said, how difficult it will be to convince people to give up their crowns? Even the scrap of them they hold now. Lords will grumble at having to ask their peasants before chopping down some bit of forest for a new wing to their hall. Yes, Bran said simply. That is why I brought you. Tyrion looked down into his empty hands. Of course, he said. I did always want to change the world. I thought I would start with the wine. The High Septon stepped forward then, surprising all of them. The Seven teach that we are stewards of creation, he said. We are given dominion, but with it comes duty. We have failed that duty. He looked up at the great tree. If the old gods and the new can be reconciled, if oaths can be sworn that protect the weak, not the strong, he took a breath, then the faith will support this new pact. A murmur rose from the human contingent. Shock, anger, assent, doubt. Bran heard all of it as a distant buzz, like bees in summer. He turned his chair away from them and rolled closer to the great weirwood's trunk. I will be your king, he said quietly. but only long enough to end kings. Final is final. I will carry this until it breaks me or the world no longer needs it. Then I will go where you go, into the roots. The tree's bark creaked, sap gleamed, a branch lowered, leaves brushing his hair like a hand. So be it, the voice whispered, we name you last. He pressed his palm to the trunk. For a moment the world vanished in white. When the light faded, he was back in the clearing. His hand tingled. Where it had touched the bark, a print remained, darker than the surrounding wood, as if the tree had drunk a little of his blood. Done, Leaf said. The pact is sworn. By him, by us, by the land. And by us, the High Septon said, raising his crystal scepter. By the faith of the seven. One by one, they stepped forward to speak their oaths. Edmure, voice shaking but steady by the end, swearing that the Riverlands would protect their streams and forests, would not dam a river without the counsel of those who lived downstream, would not take more fish than the waters could replenish. Arian, eyes bright, swearing that Dorne would plant trees where it cut them, that it would share water with its neighbors rather than hoarding it, that the princes of Dorne would forever be bound by law, not above it. Robin Arryn, blowing out his cheeks before squaring his shoulders and promising that the Vale would guard its high passes not just against armies but against greed, that its knights would protect the small folk from their own lords if needed. Willis Tyrell of the Reach pledging to turn his lands into a garden more carefully tended than ever, crops rotated, soils not exhausted, forests not clear-cut but harvested lightly, reshaped rather than raised. Even the Ironborn, represented by a hard-eyed woman named Asha, came forward to swear that they would take less in raiding, that they would turn more to trade and to fishing done with care, that they would no longer salt their own fields to force their sons to the sea. Each oath wound around the clearing like another root. Bran could see them, faint green lines tying men to land, land to men. At last, Sansa. She had arrived that morning, having ridden through the night when delays and storms slowed her progress. She stood now beside Bran's chair, her hair catching red light from the weirwood leaves, her crown of dark steel dull in the dim. The North remembers, she said. We remember hunger. We remember fire. We remember what happens when southern games spill northern blood. She looked at Leaf, at the green men, at the great tree. But we also remember another thing, she said. That we are not alone. That we have never been alone. The old gods have watched us. The land has held us. We belong to it as much as it belongs to us. Her voice carried, clear and sure. I, Sansa Stark, Queen in the North, swear that Winterfell and all the lands that look to it will honor this pact. We will not cut more trees than we need. We will not hunt beasts to extinction. We will not take our brother the land for granted. If we do, may the snows bury us and the wolves eat our bones. Leaf's eyes shone. The green man bowed his antlered head. Good, he said. It should have ended there, neatly as stories sometimes did. It did not. Even as the last echo of Sansa's words faded, a shout went up at the edge of the clearing. Men burst from the trees, human men, not green ones nor children. Their armor was mismatched, their banners rough, but the symbol on their armbands was clear enough. A seven-pointed star, crudely smeared in pitch. Faith militant, Tyrion swore under his breath. I thought we'd done away with those lunatics, he muttered. Fanatics thrive in cracks, Sansa said. And the RLD has many cracks just now. The leader of the intruders, a square-jawed man with a shaven head and a scar running from ear to chin, pointed his sword at Bran. Blasphemy, he cried. Treason against the gods. The king consorts with demons and tree spirits. He would tear down all thrones, deny the seven their sacred anointed. Behind him, more men poured in, screaming prayers, swords raised. The green men moved with startling speed, antlers and spears flashing. Children of the forest melted into the shadows and reappeared behind attackers. Hamstrings opened with obsidian daggers. But zeal had its own momentum. One man broke through the ring, sword raised high, eyes wild. Tyrion stepped forward on instinct, only to be shoved aside by a greater mass. Brienne of Tarth met the man's charge with steel. Oathkeeper sang as it left its sheath. Brienne's first strike knocked the fanatic's sword aside. Her second drove the blade through his chest. He stared at her, blood bubbling at his lips, then slid off the sword. More came. The clearing erupted into chaos. Bran did not reach for a weapon. He reached for the roots. The weirwood's network flared under his hands. He shoved his mind into it, not gently. All across the isle, red leaves rattled. Ravens screamed and took wing in a black cloud. The ground itself trembled. Stop, he thought, or perhaps he spoke it aloud, or perhaps the trees did it for him. Stop. The word hit like a hammer. Every human froze. Not entirely. Hearts still beat. Lungs still drew breath. Blood still flowed from wounds. But the muscles that lifted swords, that propelled bodies forward, seized. Men fell mid-charge, their limbs locked. Mouths opened and no sound came. Brienne staggered, her sword slipping from suddenly nerveless fingers. She fell to one knee, gasping, eyes wide. Only the children and the green men still moved easily. Tyrion's hand trembled as he reached up to touch his own throat, as if checking that it still existed. "Remind me, please," he said through clenched teeth, jaw barely working. "Never to fight you." Bran pushed harder. "Look," he whispered to the frozen fanatics. "Please, just look." He did not have the strength to show them as much as he had seen, but he could show them enough. He opened a thin vein between the weirwood's memory and their minds. In every fanatic's eyes burned a white fire. For a heartbeat, they saw the void that had nearly swallowed the world, the endless night and the marching dead. They saw their own bodies among the whites, swords rusted in skeletal hands, eyes blue and empty. They saw cities flooded and forests burned, temples toppled and bones ground to dust. They saw children, their own children, lying cold and still beside dry wells. They saw the land itself crack. One man screamed, a high, thin sound that barely escaped his locked jaw. Bran let the vision go. The hold on their limbs loosened. Men collapsed, swords clattering from numb fingers. Some wept, some vomited, some curled into themselves like frightened children. "Mercy," the High Septon whispered, making the sign of the seven over his heart. "Mother, have mercy." Leaf looked at Bran. "You showed them a possible path," she said. "What if they think it the only one?" "They were already convinced of only paths," Bran said tiredly. "Perhaps this will widen their minds. Or break them. Either is better than the path they were on." His body ached. He felt old, older than his years, older than the war, older than the trees. The exertion of holding so many minds, even for a moment, had sent sharp pain branching through him. He tasted copper. Tyrion stepped forward, shaking off the last of the paralysis with effort. "You need to rest," he said, "before you decide to stop all the hearts in the world." "I am not a god," Bran said. "I am only a boy in a chair." "Tell that to the trees," Tyrion said. "I think they disagree." The clearing gradually calmed. The faith militant who had attacked, those who could still stand, were rounded up by green men and human guards alike. Some sobbed apologies. Others stared blankly. A few glared with undimmed hatred. "We will take them," the High Septon said heavily, "back to King's Landing. They will face judgment. Perhaps contemplation. I cannot promise they will all change. But I can promise their movement will not go unchallenged." "It will not end with them," Sansa said quietly. "There will be others. Men who see weakness in the end of kings. Lords who think they can seize more if the old structures fall. Fanatics who think any change is heresy." "Yes," Bran said. "There will be many. There always are." He looked up at the great tree. "I cannot hold the world by the throat forever," he said to it. "Nor should I. If this new pact is to mean anything, men must choose it. Again and again, without me staring over their shoulders." The tree's many faces seemed to shift, carving lines deepening and softening as shadows moved. "Roots rarely move," it whispered, "but they grow. The days that followed on the Isle of Faces were filled with talking. It was not glorious work. There were no trumpets, no banners unfurled in triumph. There were arguments about grain tithes and river rights, about the reach of the new Pax authority, about what exactly it meant for the land to come first. Tyrion thrived. "This," he told Bran one night, as they sat beneath a smaller weirwood on the Isle's western shore, watching moonlight dance on the lake, "is my element. Give me 10 zealots with swords and I am useless. Give me 10 lords with inflated opinions of themselves and a vague sense of public duty, and I can work wonders." "Lords," Bran said, "are often more dangerous than zealots." "Yes," Tyrion said cheerfully, "but they are predictable in a way. Zealots are not. You can bribe them, flatter them, threaten their pocketbooks. Zealots have only their god and their pride, and gods are notoriously hard to bribe." He twisted his cup in his hands. "I will need help," he said, "if I am to build councils that actually function and do not simply become new nests for old ambition. Men and women who have seen the worst of both worlds and still think it worth trying for something better." He looked at Bran. "Perhaps someone like Samwell Tarly," he mused aloud. "He knows books, and people, and food. He would make an excellent master of something. Perhaps master of the obvious." "Sam would help," Bran said. "He already is in the Citadel. He has been arguing for the study of magic to be included in the Archmaster's work, not hidden away. They do not like it, but they listen. Some of them." "Excellent," Tyrion said. "We will make him an Archmaester of the world, whether the Citadel likes it or not." He took a sip of wine, then set the cup down carefully. "And you?" he asked. "What will you be, once you are no longer king in anything but name?" Bran's gaze drifted across the water. "A listener," he said. "A memory, a story told by trees." "And will you be happy there?" Tyrion asked softly. Bran considered the question. Happiness. It was a small word for something that had always seemed both too distant and too trivial for him. There had been moments, flying with ravens, running with summer, sitting by the hearth at Winterfell with his brothers and sisters, that had filled him with a warmth that might have been that. There had been more moments of quiet contentment. Watching Sansa smile, seeing Jon laugh, feeling Arya's fierce joy as she sailed into the unknown. "I do not think of happiness," he said. "I think of balance, of not wasting what has been broken." "That," Tyrion said, "is the most kingly answer you have ever given. Which is unfortunate, given your plans to make kings obsolete." He leaned back against the tree, eyes closing. "Very well," he said. "Let us undo a few thousand years of tradition before breakfast. I always work better on an empty stomach." Took months. They did not stay on the Isle that whole time. The pact was sworn there, but its work had to be done in the lands it would bind. Bran returned to King's Landing, to the White Keep and its endless petitions. Sansa to Winterfell. Edmure to a Riverrun still half-occupied by ghosts. Tyrion wrote letters until his hand cramped. He traveled, too, more than he had in years, riding or sailing from one corner of the Six Kingdoms to another, meeting with small councils in half-repaired town halls, sitting with farmers under the shade of spared trees, arguing with lords in drafty keeps. "You are mad," one of them told him bluntly, a barrel-chested man from the Westerlands whose minds had once enriched the Lannisters. "You expect us to ask peasants leave to cut wood on our own land? Do you value your land?" Tyrion asked. "Do you want it to last your grandchildren's lifetime? Or would you prefer it a barren wasteland in 10 years? The Lord glared. "I'll be dead in 10 years, he said. "What do I care?" "Ah," Tyrion said. "Then this conversation is a waste of time. I am building a world for people who care about 10 years from now." Not all conversations ended that way. Some ended with tentative agreement, with quills scratching on parchment as new local councils were sworn in, made up of small folk and nobles alike, bound to consult the trees and the land's needs before making decisions. In some places, hearts turned faster than heads. In a small village on the edge of the Kingswood, a woman whose child had died in the last winter asked Bran, tears on her face. If the new pact meant there would never be another famine. No, Bran said gently. It cannot promise that. Winters will still come. Crops will still fail sometimes. But perhaps fewer children will starve because some lord wanted a new hall instead of thinking of his people. Then I will plant trees, she said fiercely. I will plant so many that my grandchildren will curse me when they have to rake the leaves. Bran smiled. Curse you in shade, he said. It is the best curse a grandmother can have. News of the pact spread beyond the 6 kingdoms. From Bravos came curious merchants, wanting to know if this new emphasis on the land meant a shortage of timber, and thus a rise in prices. From Meereen came a letter written in careful High Valyrian, asking if the new councils might serve as models for the freed cities they were building among the ashes of Daenerys' dream. From beyond the wall came no letters, but Bran felt ripples in the weirwoods when Jon and the free folk began to listen more closely to their own trees, to hunt with more care, to leave offerings at the feet of ancient, crooked trunks. Arya felt it too, far away across the sea. On a distant continent, where trees were stranger and older than those of Westeros. She stood in a forest whose leaves were blue as bruises and listened to a tree that had never seen snow whisper a name it had learned from another, across a wide weir of roots that spanned oceans. Bran, it said, final king. She laughed, half in delight, half in sorrow. Trust him to make himself unnecessary, she told the tree. He was always good at that. Years passed, councils rose and fell. Some were wise, some corrupt. Some were overthrown by lords who missed the old ways, who longed for the simplicity of a single crown to bow to or rebel against. In some places, the new pact held firm. Forests grew where fields had been ravaged. Rivers ran clearer. Wolves returned to hills that had not heard their howls in generations. In other places, it faltered, and the land answered with floods, blights, storms. Bran watched. He grew thinner, his hair whitening early. His legs, already useless, withered further. His hands trembled when he tried to lift a cup. He spent more and more time in the Godswood, his chair positioned beneath the heart tree in the White Keep's newly planted grove, a sapling grown from a cutting of the Isle's great tree. Tyrion grew old beside him, his hair gone entirely white, his limp more pronounced. He took to using a cane shaped like a lion's paw, more for balance than for show. You are fading, Tyrion said one day, sitting on a bench across from Bran as the leaves above turned from red to a deeper wine. Like old ink on parchment. Everything fades, Bran said. Ink, kings, games. You could hold on, Tyrion said. I've seen you. The things you can do with a touch to bark. You could push death off for decades. Centuries, perhaps. Become, what was the word they used to call that old man under the tree? Immortal. The thought held no allure. Bran remembered the three-eyed raven, half-root, half-man, trapped in his own memories. I have done what I had to, Bran said. The rest is not mine. Tyrion's jaw tightened. We could still use you, he said. Lords squabble. Councils bicker. The land, it does better, yes, but not as well as it could. There is still so much to do. There will always be, Bran said. That is the point. The work never ends. But kings must. Tyrion looked at his hands. I do not know what I am without a king to advise, he said. I have been hand to monsters and to you. How does one retire from that? By letting go, Bran said. He smiled faintly. Or by drinking. You were good at that once. I have given up many things, Tyrion said. I think I may give up that as well. I would like, for once, to leave something in my cup. He looked up at the heart tree. Will you know me? He asked it. When I am gone, the leaves rustled. We remember all pieces, the tree whispered, amused. Even the ones that think themselves small. Tyrion snorted. If a tree is going to insult me, I'd prefer it do it in a language I can understand, he said. He got to his feet with a soft grunt. Do not leave very suddenly, he told Bran. I have a speech prepared. Bran did not. When the time came, it was quietly, in the Godswood, just as he had known it would be. He did not lie in a soft bed, surrounded by weeping courtiers. He sat in his chair beneath the heart tree and closed his eyes. His breath came slow and easy. His heart beat, then did not. Sansa was there. She had come down from the north when the maesters wrote of his failing body. Her red hair shot through with gray, her eyes lined but still sharp. She stood with her hand on his shoulder as his chest stilled. "Thank you," she whispered. He did not answer aloud. His voice lived elsewhere now. Sansa turned and looked up at the heart tree. "You'll look after us," she said. It was not a question. The leaves shivered. Always came the answer, not in words, but in the rustle of red hands. Always and never. "We remember." Sansa smiled, tears in her eyes. "We'll try not to make you regret it," she said. Tyrion insisted on delivering a eulogy. He did it in the great hall of the White Keep, beneath banners that now included not just sigils of houses but symbols of councils. A sheaf of wheat over waves, a tree whose roots wrapped a city, a balance held by two hands. "Kings," he said, his voice clear despite his age, "are much maligned in our histories, and often with very good reason. They burned and they broke and they demanded songs about their own greatness while the world bled around them." He glanced up at the rafters. Brandon was not like that. He was different, annoyingly so, a ripple of laughter. "He did not want the throne," Tyrion went on, "which, in my experience, is the first sign of someone even remotely fit to sit it. He did not want power. He wanted to watch, to listen, to remember, to weave what he had seen into something that might, perhaps, hurt less." He took a breath. "He was a strange boy when I first met him," he said, "a crippled child with more stubbornness than sense. He became a strange man, with more knowing than any of us should have. I will miss him, and the world he helped build will miss him, in ways it does not yet understand." He lifted his cup. "To the final king," he said, "may no one ever sit where he sat again." "Final," the hall echoed. Sansa lifted her own cup. "And to the first councils," she added. "May they argue forever, and may their arguments be about how to make things better, not worse." She drank. Others followed. In the Godswood, the heart tree listened to the murmur of voices, the clink of cups. It felt the warmth of Bran's body cooling against its roots, the way his flesh would return to the earth, feed worms and soil and, eventually, roots. But Bran was not gone. He moved through the weirwoods now without the drag of bone and muscle. He flowed along roots and sap, along rivers and streams, through leaves and wind. He whispered in the ears of children who fell asleep against trunks, in the dreams of maesters who dozed over dusty tomes, in the thoughts of old women who sat by their doors watching grandchildren play under shade. He watched as years turned into decades. He saw councils falter and then right themselves. He saw a drought averted when a group of farmers in the Reach convinced their lord to build cisterns instead of a new feast hall. He saw a storm tear the roof off a village in the Riverlands, and neighbors from miles away come to help without waiting for orders from above. He saw fanatics rise again, shouting that the old ways of kings and gods had been better, simpler. He saw them thwarted, not by true magic, but by people who remembered what had been before. He saw the Children of the forest diminish. They were fewer each year. Some died, their long lives finally reaching their ends. Some simply stopped, their bodies curling into roots, their eyes closing as sap overtook them. The green men, too, became rarer, their antlers brittle, their moss drying. Leaf came one day to the heart tree in the White Keep. She moved more slowly than she had on that first day in the oaks by the Blackwater, but her eyes were still bright. "You used us well," she said to the tree. To Bran, "You used us better," Bran whispered back. "You made this possible." "We made a last king," Leaf said. "It was stranger than I expected." She pressed her small brown hand to the bark beside the dark imprint of Bran's palm. "We will go soon," she said. "There are few of us left. The land does not need our faces anymore. It has yours." Many of yours. Bran thought of the children who now grew up knowing both the old gods and the new, who learned to read not just Maester's letters but the language of leaves. He thought of the boys and girls who had been born after the last king sat down in his chair, who could not imagine a world where one person held all power. "You will be remembered," he told Leaf. "We will remember." Leaf smiled. "That is all we ever asked," she said. She stepped back. For a moment her outline blurred, leaf and bark and bones sliding together. Then she was gone. Where she had stood, a small sapling grew, its leaves bright and red. Time unspooled. Wars still happened. No pact, however well meant, could erase the greed and fear and folly woven into human hearts. But they were smaller, more contained. They burned fields, not continents. They toppled leaders, not entire systems. There were always those who wanted crowns. There were always those who whispered that it would be easier to have one man or woman to blame, to follow, to worship. Sometimes they even rose, calling themselves kings. They did not last. People had seen too clearly what monarchy could do. They had grown used to being heard in their councils, to being able to petition not a distant, unknowable ruler, but their neighbors. They grumbled, of course. They argued, but they did not run so quickly to kneel. In a village on the edge of the Wolfswood, centuries after Bran's bones had turned to soil, a child sat with her back against a hard tree, eyes closed. "What are you doing?" her brother asked, poking her with a stick. "Listening," she said. "To what?" "The wind." "The king," she said matter-of-factly. "He tells stories." "There's no king," her brother scoffed. "Only the councils in the town and at Winterfell. Everyone says so." "Not that kind of king," the girl said patiently. "The other kind. The last one. He lives in the trees now." Her brother rolled his eyes and went back to his game. The girl smiled and pressed her palm more firmly against the bark. "Tell me again about the dragons," she whispered, "and the White Walkers, and the girl who sailed west, and about when you said no more kings." The leaves rustled. The tree's sap ran slow and deep. "Once upon a time," Bran's voice said in her mind, and in 1,000 other minds, and in the wind. "Once upon a time, the world played a game with pieces called kings. Seemed as if it would never end. But one day, the trees returned, and they named a boy their final king. He did not wear his crown for himself. He wore it long enough to put it down." The girl listened, eyes half closed, as the story wound through her like a root seeking water. In the heart of the Isle of Faces, the great weirwood stood, white and red and still. Faces layered its trunk, old and new, childish and ancient. Among them, one looked outward with eyes that seemed just a little less carved than the rest. The wind shifted, leaves whispered. "We remember," they said,